I always thought DMing, being the dungeon master, and just running a game got really boring when it came down to, when it always came down to numbers. You're at a table and people kind of lose track of the role playing and the stuff that's actually happening in the game, and they're so focused on the dice. And how many dice they get to roll and how much damage they do and so on and so forth. So whenever I would DM, I always like to focus on the things that I thought mattered. And what mattered to me was the experiences, the things that happened in that session, the moments that you talk about later on when you're done playing the game and you're like, hey, remember that time when so-and-so fell from a tree because they rolled a 1 and, you know, they broke their leg and they couldn't, you know, and just moments. So whenever I would DM, I would try to focus on things that were, I would always try to have those moments, those cinematic moments, cinematic moments that we would always remember when a person did something really good or really bad. And we would talk about it for days to come. So I would typically, as a DM, I would try to set up moments like that. Set up, tee players up to be put into a situation like that where they might be even, they're supposed to win. You know, think about when you used to play like those RPGs, those like Final Fantasy and those matches that you, the game knew you were going to win. You were supposed to win those, or vice versa. Maybe you were going against a boss that was supposed to win in order to drive the narrative. It's P&D or Gamma Haven is very similar to that. At least that's how, in the way I run my games. All right, so welcome to the Gamma Haven Q&A, where I answer all of the questions that you had, more so about the season finale. You had an opportunity to submit any questions that you had for a few days. I'm going to answer all of them right now. And if this doesn't answer all the questions that you have, just keep an ear out, because there's going to be another video called Director in Depth, where I'll do a deeper dive into why everything happened the way it did, and in the order that it happened, as well as some behind the scenes things and the whole thought process behind it. But this Q&A is a quick Q&A that we're going to use to pretty much answer any outstanding questions that we want to get clarified before we move further. So I want to thank everyone who submitted their questions. They were great questions. There's no bad question. You know, hopefully everybody watched it, so their questions are not questions that can be answered easily by just watching or listening to it. But let's dive in. What is exactly meant by Anarchy creating the collective? She had a life before the Gamma Calamity, and stated it in her character sheet. A life before Gamma Calamity. Well, I took a look at the character sheet. In the character sheet, it says Kali has always had a shockingly extreme fondness for computers and electronics to a point of mania. In an effort to become closer with technology, she cut off her right arm and used nanobots to create a prosthetic one. When the gamma explosion happened, she awoke remembering nothing but her infatuation with technology. Rather obsessive, she will begin entire projects to bring people or Peoplz down for small reasons like breaking her life dock. Her moral compass points in the direction of money or simply fun. She currently works freelance under the alias The Collective. So as you can see in the character sheet, it says that she remembered nothing. And that pretty much opens that up for play, in my opinion. And then considering that there were many previous cycles, this is the 777th cycle, which are pretty much lifetimes. Remember, this is an artificial environment. The instigator, he was constantly restarting it. The memories would be reset and selective memories would stay. So, you know, the collective, she could have been created by Anarchy lifetimes ago. She doesn't necessarily have to have been created yesterday if that's how it was interpreted. She can just keep getting rebooted with certain memories and stored intact. Lots of ways to take it. But the only reason I even went in that direction was only because the player of the collective in Discord asked me to do so. And even in the collective submission, they stated that they wanted to explore her past. Nothing specific, just explore her past. So that's why I went in that direction. This was the same episode that Anarchy was coming in, and I was like, wow, like that's almost perfect that you have somebody like the collective who wants to explore their past. At the same time, you have Anarchy coming in, so that's, it's just a story lead. You don't have to go in that direction, but when it's open like that, and you want to explore those things, I'm just going to throw out something, and then you take it. You take it where you want to take it. Being created by Anarchy should be seen as a good thing. Anarchy is a big character of Gamma Haven history. He's literally one of the first 3 characters of the game, and being created by such a figure is really a big deal if you think about it, because you got to remember this universe starts with you all, and when we're still playing Gamma Haven 30 some odd years from now, people are going to look back and see where it all began. And when you have a character being created by Anarchy, that's essentially like Odin birthing you. You're a child of a god, pretty much, or someone that's really important in that universe. But yeah, the player of Kali specifically asked to explore the history. She didn't remember anything prior to the Gamma Calamity, so I thought it would be cool to have it so that, and she also mentioned in the past that she wanted to explore the idea of maybe a sentient robot race, or nanobot race. So that would be in a world where you have a tyrant like Anarchy who's in charge of the creation of androids and so on and so forth. Because I want to keep everybody tied in. I would much have you would be created by another player before you were created by an NPC, pretty much. As you saw with Yaga Makai, I was getting ready to go the direction of having anyone who dies being recreated by Yaga Makai. So again, you can go in any direction you want it. That's just me giving you a lead, so you can kind of be in the loop of things and stay relevant. But yeah, run away with it, take it in any direction you want. Even if tomorrow in the next episode you wanted to move away and not be associated with Anarchy, there's a lot of androids that are that didn't know they were sleeper androids. So you don't necessarily have to have the same mindset as Anarchy. You were just created to serve a particular purpose, and if that purpose is complete, and just depending on where you want to take it, then you can carry on. You can go back to Atlas. It's just you. If you ever want to revisit that, you can. We can write around anything. Now that the Guard has lost their floating base, what is the state of their armed forces? They had a large army assaulting Nox and a hidden base in the Western Ward mine, so what's going on with those? Hey, Haven Guard, they still have their base, It was an EMP blast that destroyed all of those sleeper androids in the base. So again, heading back to, I try to get detailed with the character's abilities. Whenever I find an opportunity for your character to use their ability, I will. Jacob has the ability called Jacob rigging, where he can repurpose things. So you just got done fighting Hunter, who his Nox suit, one of his Nox suit's abilities was an EMP wave. So you had repurposed his armor into a bomb that released an EMP wave that destroyed everybody in the base, including the base's electronics. But if you go back and listen, I said that it was just the electronics. The base is still there. And by the base being electronically ruined, I see that as just giving you something to do. Maybe that'll be your next in your journey to rebuild Haven Gate or the Haven Guard, you're going to need some technicians to help you build up your base, to get your stuff back on spot, to help you get your base back. At the end of the day, the base was the culmination of a lot of things, birthed by characters that, were controlled by certain people. So I think it's fair for there to be a minor setback with the whole electronics issue. And whatever makes more story, whatever makes more drama, the better. You always want to have something that you can do. And I'll always find a way to turn it into something even greater. So just keep that in mind. The Haven Guard, they still have their army. The population of the Haven Guard that were sleeper androids was not that many compared to the entirety of all of Haven Guard. So, you got to remember, Haven Guard is a bunch of mercenaries from Haven, Gate agents, and the Bulwark Network. And they're still there. The base that you have in the Wardenary Mines, to my knowledge, that's still there. That didn't go anywhere. Though I would suggest spending some time tackling the narrative piece of the Bulwark Network leak, because remember, Jacob and Marshall, they were the ones that joined the Bulwark Network. They went into the Bulwark Network. That's where they were doing all their recruiting, which is what led to Anarchy hacking the systems and knowing all of your moves. And that's how he intersected and took the fist. So that has yet to have been patched up. None of your characters have tried to do anything with the Bulwark Network. It's still there. So for as long as that hole is there, whenever Anarchy wants to do something with Haven Guard, that would probably be the first way it would be done. That's what I would lean on to justify Anarchy having some insider knowledge. So I would highly recommend you fix that, or just saying that you're doing something in your submission. What is the current state of the tank? What are some things that are being worked on in the background on the admin side? Good question. So the tank has been out of service ever since Scorn and her pirates chased the instigator out of the cockpit, pretty much away from the council of operations for the entire tank. Chased him into the tank. So no one has been operating the tank since then. And remember, when the instigator came into the tank to flee her, he was shot down by Anarchy's androids. And then they took him in and probed him and so on and so forth. But while Anarchy had the instigator in his clutches, this was around the time that Poke Turner was kind of allying with Anarchy to create chaos. And Poke Turner took it upon himself to steal the controls to the tank controls, and he destroyed those controls. He teleported them into millions of little pieces and separate all throughout the world so they could never be used again, because Poke Turner was tired of the cycles and he was bored of all that. So he made it so there could never be a cycle again. So the tank was going to continue in its current cycle. There's no way for it to restart. It's going to continue in its cycle until it runs out of power. And who knows? This is Uncown technology. Uncown is an alien race that created the technology itself. It was the Necrofiend scientists, liches, the liches that came to utilize that tank. They were collaborating with the Uncown, creating life inside of the tank, creating G-types, because they themselves, the Necrofiends, were trying to create the ultimate G-type. Deathtude, The instigator, they each had their own little personal goals, but for the most part, they were trying to create something, and the Uncount were letting them do that for as long as they could also provide G-types that they would sell into slavery to be sold as like mercenaries and super soldiers and so on and so forth. But now that that's over with, you know, the who knows what this tank is powered by? I would assume that eventually it would run out of power. So that's another thing to keep in mind. You know, without any maintenance or operators, the tank is just sitting dormant. In regards to everything that happened with Epony, she won her role. But for the sake of the story, I killed her so that she could be the reason the planet starts to become real. And as we shift into and go forward and shift into a new age of the story, we want there to be change. So I wanted to make it so that it was actually becoming, it's not fully a real planet yet, but this is, if it's going to become a real planet, this would be the way. And I thought that thing with Epony would have been cool. But you know, more on that to follow. I like to kick off every season with a premise of what's happening to set the stage, so you can know what's next as we start the season, and we're going to do that again as well. In regards to what's going on behind the curtain, a lot is being worked on. A lot, you know, coming up is the road to season 3 is what we're calling it. New rules, changes, shifting focus to role playing and an improved workflow. You know, it's essentially a reboot of character creation, some character creation rules. You know, we're going to open that up. So while we're on the road to season 3, people are going to be brainstorming what their characters are going to be. But, you know, we're also going to be adding lore to races. We're going to be adding new races. We're going to be adding occupations, racial perks. Yeah, all at the same time, the game is still going to remain simple. Yes, it's an RPG, but I don't want to weigh the game down with a bunch of RPG mechanics. I want to take as much as that out of the hands of the players so they can focus on role playing. And that was always the route that I wanted to take, because I just wanted to make the game accessible to people who just had an imagination, and that's it. That's it. Not no number crunching or keeping track of stats or anything like that. Just imagination and a few minor details that they would have to be in charge of. But yeah, good question. But yeah, you know, with all the changes, the goal is to not overwhelm players with heavy RPG mechanics, but you know, at the same time provide more clarity and control of the narrative and their own situation. So a lot of the changes that are coming are going to make the game a lot better and shift some focus away from you know, ranks and so on and so forth, especially because something like that is so finicky. Cat versus mouse, at any moment I could just throw in a dog. That's why ranks don't matter. Naturally the cat would have a higher advantage. The mouse would the cat would be a higher rank, the mouse would be a lower rank. But maybe a player says that the room is filled with mouse holes. That would give the mouse a little bonus. You know, the base ranks are just where we start. The details in between is what kind of starts shifting things, and that's all in control of the player. So if you're utilizing your allies, if you're utilizing details, you're utilizing your skill set, you can control the things that are going to shift the base ranks. And then here I come throwing in a dog into the mix that could affect the cat. You know, so it's for this, and I'm only adding a dog to make the story interesting and lead to this and that and make a great cinematic adventure. So again, it's all, I want to keep the game light and all about just those cinematic moments that we can talk about later. You know, and I'm going to go into all of this a little later on, but we're going to be launching the podcast. We're going to be launching that up again, and we're going to be celebrating that by releasing every episode up until the latest episode with some extreme world building happening for each of those releases and activities around those episodes, because we really want to flesh out a lot of what already existed, as well as bring attention to some people bring to the attention that a lot has happened, even in the prequel episodes, which for me personally are hard to listen to because it didn't really sound that great back then. But man, there's a lot of stuff from the prequel that ties in to now, because I feel like I've done a great job with bringing it full circle constantly over and over again. And if you were to listen to the prequels up until now, you would see that, you would start to say, okay, so now I understand why this is that way, who that is, why they're doing this. You know, the whole thing of why the Gate Center even exists is pretty damn deep. There's a lot of story behind all of that. Do I expect people to go back and listen to every episode? No. But for any new people, I will be re-releasing these episodes with the launch of the podcast again, and we're going to build out some lore in some of those episodes as well. Did I also mention that there is a really awesome website in the works? No, I didn't, but more on that later. I have some help, and they are focused on many of the moving parts in our machine, and it just improves the overall. So they will be announced, and more on all that later. Why is Shiro an android? Truthfully, around that time, when I had to implement the whole sleeper android plot twist, and I'm going to tell you later on what the original goal was, but I liked the many parallels that this particular route took. I wasn't sure if Shiro was also played by Makai or not, so at first I was just going to have Kali kind of usher in the new sentient android race, her being the only one. Androids that do not know they're androids and have a lot more feeling. And I thought it would be cool to also make Shiro that as well, at the same time seeing how he reacts to see if it was Makai or not. But you're bringing in a new race. There's a whole stigma with this race, because just like in the beginning when gamma types were introduced, there was a big thing with being a gamma type, and I want every race to eventually have something about them that makes it interesting to be them, that makes it hard to be them. So when we flesh out all the races, I'm going to encourage players to submit things that kind of add that extra layer to that race. So making Shiro an android, I thought, was just a nice little curveball to throw at him, just like how Epony got killed but she won, and just how Marshall Mesa, his skin got turned blue as a side effect of Nonan's experiments. It's just little curveballs that can always be remedied with a little role playing. But I like the thought of Shiro not having full control of himself all the time to fulfill his purpose, similar to how Kali fulfilled her purpose in bringing back anarchy. It's in your programming, kind of like how Vision is with the Avengers, but he kind of turned good. But you can abort that if you want. I can write you out of it, like I did with Poke Turner. When Poke Turner became a Necro Guardian, and when Looper Ken became a Necro Guardian, it's usually just me trying to give you a deeper purpose in the story. Remember, in a few phases ago, the Four Horsemen event from a few phases ago, if you remember, when you chose it, it pretty much said, if your character is a loner, you have no one to care for, you have nothing to live for, you have nothing to lose. Choose this event, test your fate, pretty much, and they became the Necro Guardians who would protect the children. And that was just me that was just a plot lead, and if you want to take it, you can take it. If you don't, you don't have to take it. I wrote, for example, Poke Turner, he became a little rebellious as Poke Turner, as we all knew he would. So I kind of wrote it so that the Nox virus was weakening Janiva, which made it so that he was not controlled by those dark desires. And even they were never even fully under control to begin with. I always kind of leaned toward it was more so the darkness playing on their desires that made them feel like what they were doing was the right thing to do. But when Janiva started getting sick, that kind of weakened that dark hold that was over them, and Poke was coming out of that. So we can always, I say that to say, we can always write you out of anything. It's just more so me giving you something that wasn't there, and that's some sort of direction. But yeah, the goal is just to make it to tie you to other characters, to tie you to plots, because to ensure that you're in the episodes, you would have to make sure that you're somewhat relevant. I'll make an exception every now and then, like the Dizzy Wizard opening up a damn candy factory had nothing to do with it, but I thought it would have been fun to have that in there just to kind of shake things up. And I also thought it would have been cool to have people receiving, delectable deliveries throughout the whole episode. Someone was getting a package, and I just wanted to kind of tie that in with everything to show that this is all connected. This world is all connected, and it doesn't always have to be serious. So that's why I chose to put Dizzy in there. But typically people who are doing something like an outlier, and I'm always going to try to find a way to tie them in somehow. I'm not going to, necessarily put you in front of somebody that's trying to fight you. I'm going to try to find a way to make you relevant and tie you in. That's just how I write all of this. Who do you believe Dennis Bateman is as a person? And maybe shed some light on his story if you can. Yeah. So I don't know much about Dennis Bateman. That's a lot. There's a lot of character to explore there. The only thing I really know about him is that he was working with Atlas at first when J.O. first took over Nebu. He was responsible for tracking down Maxima. He was the reason that J.O. even knew that she was, communicating with people on the outside and taking advantage of other council members. And then after that, in his latest submission, he stated that he was now working for Jacob and spying on Starrift. So it was kind of all over the place. I couldn't tell what direction that he was trying to go in, where we were going to go. So I held back on some of the things that he put in the submission about Starrift and involving Starrift. Especially since I knew Starrift wasn't going to be a character that was going to be existing much longer. I much rather, I decided to invest Dennis Bateman in something that I thought that he would like, that fit his archetype being a spy, and something that would have a bigger impact later on. So I thought it would be cool to have you be the reason that Jacob was steps ahead of Anarchy. Dennis is the reason that Jacob wasn't laying in that bed when those sleeper androids came to kill him. He was the reason for that. And these are the like small details like that they're so big. They're so big because think about it. Later on, 30 years from now, when Haven Guard is filled with hundreds of actual players, their leader is only breathing because of Dennis Bateman. Just want you to look at it like that. All the things that happen in the game, the reward of Gamma Haven are the things they're doing in the episodes. Rewards don't mean anything if you're not in the episodes or have done anything, So everything you're doing in the episodes, in becoming part of the history to lead to other things is what I feel is most important. But Dennis, I wanted to give Dennis Bateman that role because he strikes me as someone that is just a mysterious person. You don't know whose side he's on. So he's also the reason Tempest knew of the infiltration. That scene where Tempest was getting in the cockpit after talking to Ninja Bella. And, he was giving Ninja some encouragement. And when Ninja got off the phone, Tempest, his face went back to being disgusted because he was on a totally different mission. Tempest has responsibilities that he can't share with people because he has information on different things that are supposed to happen. If he tells someone, it can affect the future. So if he's trying to manipulate the future by way of knowledge that he got a flash of by way of his third eye, he has to keep a lot of those things to himself. So not a lot of people knew about what was happening except for Dennis Bateman, which is why Dennis Bateman, I put him there in that scene, pretty much giving Tempest some encouragement, seeing him off before Tempest went into space. That was the whole point of that scene. Some Dennis support there. So to your question, I think he is still a mystery. And he's really good at what he does. I'm looking forward to seeing where his allegiance lies, or maybe we'll never know. Maybe it should always be a mystery that we don't know who Dennis Bateman is working for. Maybe I could have included the part of your submission that was about, the chocolate scented suit that he has. And I apologize for leaving that out. I try to get everything I can in there. But yeah, that would have been an easy That would have been an easy one. I just overlooked it is all. Are we going to see the Vitae girls' powers activate at any point in the near future? What will happen when they do? The Vitae girls, they're clones. They're clones of the original G-Type 2. And, they have mutations just like everyone, but that isn't what made them special. What made them special was the power that they had in them. So in a nutshell, in the beginning, Deftude created the first G-Type 2. Now, the first G-Type 2, that person's name was Saoirse. Now, mind you, this is a player that used to play. Haven't seen them in a while, but they came into the game with their own character. I made them into a special character by saying they were this special G-Type. And the whole Aura Vitae thing is all based off of an ability this character had. It's just their ability became, I made it into something important. So this character named Saoirse, whose lore is on the website, had an ability called Aura Vitae, and it was either it could make things around her become ugly, nasty, and die, like necrotic, depending on her mood, or it can create life. So whenever you have people turning into abominations, that is the negative part of the Aura Vitae. That's where that comes from. That's why when R-Type X was an abomination, he stole her energy and wore it as a hat, and that's what kept him complete. So he wasn't transforming and shit like that and becoming an abomination. So yeah, Deftude created the first G-Type 2, and the first G-Type 2 was created to be a more powerful version of a G-Type that would influence and direct the lives and influence the lives of all other G-Type 1s. But what Deftude didn't know is that the Aura Vitae is an energy that is capable of destroying Nuad, the Emperor of the Endless, the Lich King. He didn't know that. However, the Instigator knew that. The Instigator found that out before he did, and he knew that if Deftude knew that, he would kill or destroy his creation, which was Saoirse. So the Instigator allowed Saoirse to escape into the tank. The Deftude never forgave Instigator for that. And then the Deftude, when they had a disagreement, Deftude escaped into the tank and has been there ever since, operating from the inside. He went rogue. The Instigator would eventually create clones, because just in case Nuad would ever try, Deftude would ever try to maybe bring back Nuad, which is what he was suspecting Deftude was trying to do. He wanted to have something that could destroy Nuad, and he wanted to know where it was, and he also wanted to make it hard for Deftude to find and destroy them. So he created 3 clones for the purpose of having 3 ingredients to destroy Nuad. Now, this whole Nuad thing, this is all the Nuad, the enemy was created by a player. The whole thing with the Vitae and how it connects to Nuad is just me rolling with the game, rolling with what y'all are submitting. So just keep that in mind. It all kind of came together perfect. So he created these 3 clones, and that was Serenity, Amelia, and Rose. And they were supposed to be kept apart. If you recall, in I think it was season 1, first episode, Tempest and Makai went to adopt these children. And Dr. Fishlu, the one who was keeping them, told them, "Hey, you gotta adopt these girls. We can't keep them together, because when they're together, bad things happen." And that's when we saw the abominations, the mass mutation, because that was the Aura Vitae affecting the DNA in everybody. So each of them adopted one of the girls, Kai Excalibur. He came and kidnapped Rose, Rose Excalibur. And that's pretty much the Vitae girls. Star Rift, he took their power in the finale. He absorbed each of their power. So they're pretty much useless, or are they? You know, I'm going to take it where someone else takes it. Just know that Star Rift took their power. The whole plot is based off of your actions. I just provide a little direction, a little nudge here or there. But technically right now he has all their vitae power, but remember they're still G-types. They're still mutants at the end of the day. We know Rose Excalibur has some firepower because we saw her unlock that when Scorn was taking her away from Kai Excalibur. She kind of burned up Scorn's sidekick. But we have yet to see what Amelia and Serenity is capable of. We know Amelia is brave. We saw her stand up for her classmates when one of Anarchy's skull androids, I forget his name, came and attacked the school. Amelia stood up for him, but someone came and kind of saved them all. Was it Kai? Or I might have it backwards. Kai was attacking the school. Kai was trying to kidnap Amelia, and Android came and defended them. Anyway, so yeah, that can go in any direction. Amelia is currently Rose Serenity is with Kai. Scorn gave her back to Kai Excalibur. Serenity is with Uncle Ivan, and Amelia, where is Amelia? Where's Amelia? Amelia is with Scorn. I believe Amelia is with Scorn. Yeah. Because Starriff came, absorbed them both, left them there. Scorn gave Serenity to, yep. Amelia is likely with Scorn because no one picked her up, so we'll assume Scorn took her. Could you specify who is dead now? Technically, no one is dead. There is an afterlife system where souls go. This place is called the Abyss, the Void. If your soul wanders, talk to Ivan and work something out. Just don't break the contract, and you're done. But if you're wondering about if you're dead from, maybe a loss that it looked like you and that you got in this last episode, remember, in order to die, you have the person that you're crossing paths with directly, who is hostile to you, or if you're opposing, or if they're opposing you. If there are if they're 3 and up higher than you rank wise, you're able to get killed, and that wasn't the case for anyone here. For example, Poke Turner, was Kai Excalibur was not 3 ranks higher than you. So though sometimes it looks like people get killed, you'll know when people get killed. Poke Turner is just frozen in a bubble somewhere in the Neutros realm. People like Geneva. That's when Alex grabbed her head and then ripped it open. She's dead. When people are getting thrown off of a pyramid, that's essentially getting thrown out of the ring in wrestling. You know what I mean? They're not pinned. They just got thrown out. In wrestling, when everybody are all dramatic and people are getting thrown out and they lay there like, it's just, you're out of the scene. You're out. Get out of here. But yeah, no one is dead. And if you are dead, you'll know, because I'll talk to you, because we got to figure out if you're going to create a new character or if you are going to make some deals to have your life force put into an object or android, another person. But that involves Ivan. Just don't break the contract or the rules of P&D. It's only one rule. Anarchy's returning. Will it be the Anarchy trapped in the void by Ivan, or like an android backed up with Anarchy's memories? Good question. Exactly. Yes, Anarchy has returned. And yes, it is Anarchy that is returned by way of memories that he had backed up. So Anarchy is essentially omnipotent in a world full of technology and data. And the collective was Anarchy's backup data. the collective. I just thought it made sense. Her name is the collective. She's a collection of data in case one of Anarchy's selves goes offline like he did when he was taken into the void and trapped in his own mind. The Oracle is a program that he created by way of some really advanced AI that he stole from, or he has resourced from R-Type X. The Oracle AI is based off of Libra. It's very intelligent. He made sure that that thing is still pumping when he's gone. So if you remember at the end of the episode where Anarchy was taken away and stored away in the void, at the end of that episode, we saw Oracle activate, creating an android that we saw to remember the green eyes, and we would see in this episode, which is Carl 5. So, Anarchy was Collective was the backup data. Carl 5 carried the backup body. And for if and when Anarchy goes offline, he could return again. So, yeah, good question. When players, the game has to be designed in a way so that players can come and go. I can't create, I have to make it so if a character disappears one day or just wasn't here to be in the next episode, I don't have to wait for that character to come back to continue an important storyline. So a lot of things are written in a way, please take that in consideration. A lot of things are written in a way so it's like plug and play. So when Anarchy went away, he was just stored away, put on a shelf. No different than the instigator and the facilitator. They were never killed. The instigator and the facilitator, they are souls. If you look at their character sheet, they are liches. The whole idea of the necrofiends came from them. They are liches. So I was like, oh, cool. They could be a race of really intelligent liches. But they are, their souls are in phylacteries. They go from phylactery to phylactery. His life force was drained. The instigator's life force was drained right outside of Ivan's, right out of his body into Ivan's eye, which is what he does with all souls. So the instigator and the facilitator are there, and if they should ever return, it's just another realm. What's going to happen to Nebu and people's rewards from past episodes involving Nebu? Good question. Nebu is a country, it's still there, though all of its people are now on Sapathra. Well, technically now they are in the abyss because of what happened. But the goal was to have Sapathra be the new Nebu. I had a whole alternate. The original ending was supposed to be Yaga Makai would come and purge Nebu and remove them from this twisted, dark necrofiend matrix that is the tank. Those are Mama Yaga's children. Yaga Makai was the champion that was going to come and retrieve them and bring them to Sapathra, which was supposed to be a replacement continent for Nebu. It was going to hover over Nebu and everything. Nebu was going to kind of be like this old Nebu, corrupted and dark. And then you were going to have this high Nebu, this Sapathra, a realm of the beast gods that you could only go to if you were Yaga born. And Yaga Makai and all of his soldiers and people, when they die, they could either choose to go back to, they were going to be able to choose to either be able to go back to Haven as a Yaga born and live as a Yaga born in Haven, or live higher up in Sapathra and protect the planet as the planet is accosted by outside forces. Makai and the Yaga born they were going to pretty much be like the Outlook, pretty much like how the Justice League are. They watch over the planet from outside forces. Yaga Makai and his people were going to be the ones that protected the whole entire planet. Because you got to remember, a lot of people on the planet still don't even know they're part of a simulation or a tank, that they're cattle, that they're being fed on by Takena cultists, and this is the 77th lifetime. They don't know that. There's different levels of knowledge in the characters here. So the highest level of that was going to be Makai, protecting everybody on a whole nother scale. You would have storylines that would be happening in Gamma Haven, but there would be levels to this shit. Things that would have nothing, things that Jacob is taken care of or Looper is taken care of would have nothing to do with the type of heavy shit that Makai and the Yagaborn would be taken care of to stop any problems from reaching the planet. And it was going to be really cool, but we went a different direction instead, and I'm going to make it just as awesome. Rewards from the past episodes, like Jace Beleren having a bonus against Nebi enemies, that can still exist. Henri's chi-infused metal, that can still exist. Nebu losing all of its people doesn't change that. There's still Nebi people in Haven. It's just people that was on that continent. That's why Mama Yaga was like, those people in Haven, they're too far gone. Let's forget them. But rewards in general, I just want people to understand that rewards in general, 2 androids jump up on a car. No. The direction we're going in, a lot of the rewards that you have now are not going to convert because they're not going to be relevant to the way the new things are going to happen. It's a totally new system. The new rules are going to make those past rewards useless. Being in the history of Gamma Haven is the reward. The narrative is what brings value to what the rewards are. Rewards don't mean anything unless you're in the episodes. And if we stripped you of your rewards, that doesn't take away from your character or what your character was involved in Gamma Haven history. Legacy perks are pretty much going to be not only a thank you to the players that have been here in the first few seasons before we make some moves and get it popping with more players, but I kind of want it to be a symbol that you all were like the first characters in this world before things start getting opened up. And you'll have a choice, because I much prefer I'd rather you create your character, create your race, figure all that out before we go in and figure out what your legacy perks are going to be, because your legacy perks is pretty much going to be something that culminates all you've done up until now, and you're going to be bringing that into season 3. Now you can work that into your character and then maybe a legacy perk being something different, but it's essentially it's like the legacy that you had created for yourself so far. But there's going to be, we'll talk about that. So the collective was created by Anarchy 12. Why wasn't she affected like Anarchy's other creations when Anarchy was put in a coma? A good question. So I would think that she was created differently, point blank period. Just how Oracle could still exist when Anarchy went offline. So it's possible that Anarchy created Carl 5 and Kali to be the backup system, and they would remain unaffected by him going offline to serve their purpose, because that would be dumb for Anarchy to make everything just go offline from his coma, especially if you plan on coming back. Are the Nagamatos dealt with, or will Jeremiah Oliver still need to interrogate them and such? You can interpret everything off screen how you want. I would love to see a submission from Jeremiah just about that and what he did with them. We'll be introducing a lot of player engagement items that will give players the opportunity to show us what your character's doing outside of the spotlight. For those that, maybe won't make it into the website, or maybe those that won't make it into the episode, or those who want to kind of expound on something that happened before or after a scene that we didn't see. My writing is more so just a summary of things that are happening, the gist of things that are happening. I could write whole scenes about a fight. I can write whole scenes about some dialogue. So it's more so a summary. I try to keep it compacted as best as I can. But I would love for the player Jeremiah, it wouldn't hurt for him to write a scene of what that looked like. We know it's canon because it happens. We saw Jeremiah Ivan walk and the Futurists walk into the void carrying Deathtude. So we know it's canon. Let's see what Jeremiah does with that. That's kind of what Plotist was for, but your feedback was received. So stay tuned for some great changes. Did I mention a new website? What was the deal with the time anomalies from Selena? Any way you could explain a bit more about that? I'm confused. Yes. So, let me start by, and when I do the director in depth, which is when I really do a deep dive into the thought processes behind all these scenes, I'm gonna pull out and talk about all the lore submissions that were, or most of the lore submissions that were in the episode. The Uncryptids. The Uncryptids is a lore creature created by one of the players, and I wanted to tie them into season 3. I wanted to kind of foreshadow their coming, and I thought, what cool way to do that than to do it with Selena, somebody who I don't know how you all imagine her, but in my head, Selena looks really beautiful, but she's really terrifying. And the Encryptids, they have this look to them, this odd look, and I felt like it could have been something. Their origin it'd be cool if they were created from the visuals of Selena. So give me 1 second. I'm gonna pull up. So the Uncryptids, classified as villainous / neutral creatures, or an unnatural phenomenon, an alien. At the moment, they hunt the needy, hopeless and desperate, the homeless, the people who aren't noticed by the others living their lives daily, the people under subways, on the streets, at your park, crowded together in alleyways. These people who are the invisible element in the city of Gamma Haven are their targets for now. If you are in tuned, then before you see it, you are struck with a feeling of heaviness and dread. You'll hear the sound of something dripping loudly, like all the audio in the world feels like your head was underwater. You'll feel a sharp chill run down your spine, even years after an encounter with an Uncryptid. They appear odd, slender, with clothing that feels just behind the times of current standard fashion. They have exactly what you need and more, ready to offer it to you. Their skin is ashen white. Their eyes are deep black. They warping time and space. If they reveal their physical features to you, it's not because of any effort of yours. No, you feel as though at this point, they don't even care if you notice them, like they were trying to coax you into looking at them. In their presence, you feel a heavy, nauseating feeling that rests in your throat until they exit from your life. They know you. Know you're not listening to me. No. R-Type X, his lore submissions are crazy. This is what he's saying. They know you. No, you're not listening to me. They know you. Everything you are, aren't, or could ever possibly be. They hold horrific, contentious smiles with their voices sounding like oily, gravelly, and wet, like trying to talk with a mouthful of phlegm when they speak and snarl. They purpose questions that challenge your existence with a tired ambivalence. They speak a language that is in no way possible for anyone to understand, no matter what the player's powers or capabilities are. Makes you feel like your ears want to pop from air pressure. They switch to English just to toy with you. No matter who you are or how strong you are, you'll be left frozen in terror, even if you mastered the control of every emotion itself. Man, it sounds like a job for Nam. This will be a good plot for Nam to get in on next season. Even if you mastered in control of every emotion itself. Mind you, this is a submission that was submitted like last year. Like, people submit things and I find a way to work it into the story. The Iron Republic has Jacob submitted that back like the beginning of like when he first got here. They transcend the current in-game and out-of-game reality of Gamma Haven itself. Even in the meta concept world, there is nothing anyone can do yet. No matter if you have power, superhuman, god, or beard gnome level, you are nothing but some chimps, the pathetic, uncowned aliens working with the instigator and Joy. Someone knows their history. They even they enter the lives of characters like a glimpse in the peripheral vision and target one random player. We are all the same to them, minor insects to abuse and play with, to destroy or corrupt as they see fit. So it's like, how do I fit them into it, right? So they're not just some monster that just pops up out of nowhere. So I thought it would be cool to have it so that these things would be spawned, because he said they warp time and space. So I knew Ardrek, who is Makai's Makai knows this character in real life, and this person was somebody who was really intelligent. They were part of a Rayla Guardian conglomerate, like high-tech stuff. I thought it would be cool to make them ones that are proficient and they study time sciences. So they would be the ones to come and warn Tempest, because they thought Tempest was responsible for the stuff they were detecting over in Raylagar, and they would come to find out that no, it was more so experiments. It was more so what was happening in Nonan Enchel's laboratory with Omnimus. So they came because they were sensing temporal anomalies that would lead to the creation of these creatures. Now, can Ardrek see in the future, or can Sejin Tech, did they see in the future and predicted these things? Maybe that was something I wanted to explore, but we're not now. But that's why that was the whole point of them coming to Haven. So what happened is you have Selena, who, think about it, everybody went back in time. Ivan, the creator of the Abyss, specifically stated that the Abyss knows no time. Omnimus, or Vulcan Almighty, fused with Omnimus Almighty, he created these things of maximum power called Omni cages, pretty much, and that's what he was locking people in when he was going to attack the Necrofiends. And then remember in the episode, Selena got locked, and she got tossed off. She got tossed out somewhere. She landed in the market, and that's when Iglis broke out of her jewels. So you have Selena going back in time to stop this from happening, but she doesn't get there in time before her jewel is cracked, and she ends up getting put into an Omnibox again. So this time she steps out of it using her void, because she couldn't move through it. She couldn't void step through it. She couldn't phase through it because Omnimus's cages, they transcend time and dimensions. They transcend timelines as well. That's why in the future, or I'm sorry, the present, where you have Omnimus sleeping, remember Nonan was observing him and learning about him. Omnimus is sleeping. So in the past, Selena tries to get out of the cage by going into the void that knows no time, and then coming back out into, and she doesn't re-enter the past, she enters the present, but she still finds herself in a cage. So it kind of stretched the Omni cube from the past to the present. She does it again and again and again, and this is causing really, really terrible and severe temporal anomalies, which birthed these uncryptids, which are pretty much, I looked at it as corrupted data, because remember, this is a tank. Okay, this is a tank. It's all code as well, not all of it, mostly black magic and code. And I thought it would be cool to have this kind of a distortion, and it's all if it was any other character that could do the same thing, it would look like them. But in this case, it was Selena. So I kind of wanted Selena to be the reason these things are birthed. So you start to see these uncryptids pour out of this time anomaly because of Selena. And that's why we have these uncryptids. It was me just foreshadowing something that could be a big deal in season 3. We have R-Type X. A lot of people don't know that R-Type X has a sword that he never uses. He was saving it for something that mattered. Like, when I mean saving it, I mean he wasn't going to even explore that until he grew. And, he's put a lot of time in the game. I thought it would have been cool to kind of start bringing that out. So that's why the scene where you see that his sword awakens and calls him, it's because of these uncryptids. Now, because of Ardrek, I like to assume that because Ardrek knew about this is something that the Rhaelagarians were studying. And this is something, and because it's Ardrek that is doing that, and because it was created by the player R-Type X, I thought it would be natural for it to be an enemy native to the mythos of Rhaelagarians. So maybe in Rhaelagarian history and in the past, this is something that has always plagued their people. Maybe something they locked away for a while and it comes back every now and then. And maybe that's why the sword is here. And R-Type X has a larger purpose than he thought. Maybe he always knew about this, but wasn't ready for it and was trying to get ready before it came to this. But he's going to have to pick up that sword and take care of business, because what he submitted as far as the uncryptids go, they seem very powerful. So that's a little history on the uncryptids. Then the person says, last but not least, a comment on how you handled the Makai issue. I was really happy and satisfied with how it was handled. I feel justice was served. It was hard, and I thank you for understanding, and I apologize for everything that happened. I know you have nothing to do with it. It's out of all of our control. But I also like the way it happened. I'm glad it happened sooner than later. That's why, if you saw in the announcements, gave this person several times to come clean. Already knew they were doing it, or somewhat had an inkling, was doing some things, ring fencing some things. Like I said with Dennis Bateman, a lot of parallels I was able to draw to the episode because of what was happening in the real world. And I think it ended up being very poetic. It was just one rule, P&D. It's just one rule, and you can kind of see how it affects things on so many levels. You saw how much detail and time went into each of those characters and how I was tying them together. I much rather if there had been a real person on the receiving end of that spotlight, of those scenes. When you have one person that is hogging the spotlight, you got to make more spotlights. And what I meant by that was by making other great things happen in the episode outside of all those characters that were controlled by one person that could like throw a twist on things. But yeah, I mean, I felt like Willy Wonka at the end of the, remember when Willy Wonka was in the office, he was mad. Like, damn, man, I had hope. I had hope, Charlie. You were here from the beginning, Charlie. You betrayed me. I felt used. What does it mean for the tank now that it's an organic planet? Good question. If you're new to Gamma Haven and you missed season 1, we learned that the tank is an artificial creation that can harbor life. A group of rogues, necrophene scientists have been running experiments in a collaborative effort with the Uncown, and they are running experiments to create the ultimate specimen. So everything is artificial and coded into the tank. Ebony's death allows us to move away from that narrative and start working on something greater. So Ebony is a master of nature manipulation and she has a connection with the planet. So when she died, this triggered what she calls Gaia's path of the protagonoi. And she was talking with R-Type. This is what I heard R-Type say. She was kind of going to try to do something like that eventually. So great mind think alike. So we just cut to the chase, had her killed for the purpose of getting that started. Cause we're going into another direction, right? Every season is going to be drastically different. The first season was about gamma types learning about themselves and becoming gamma types. The second season was about that civil war, like the people against gamma types, where you have Advocate pretty much inciting rage. And then the second season was more about science and what is the cause of these mutations. And we had Polemic Stillwell, and we had what is the scientist's name? He had a big role in last season. I can't remember his name. And he's still alive too. He's on a scoring ship. Skriller, TJ Skriller, and just the different sciences and theories of gamma mutation. It's all about science. Well, next season is going to be just as different. And we're going to do that by way of Epony. But yeah, she created the Gaia's Path of the Protagonoi. I'm running with it. I encourage people to be creative. I loved her creativity. It was in the right place at the right time. What happened to the Fist of the Endless? The Fist is laying in a heap of abyssal brimstone. Yup, Rez's old vessel. It's still there. The Fist was a plot item. People hated it, but I heard someone say it's bad writing, but it was voted on by the people. We had a lore contest. Remember the lore contest? This was when the Nagamatos were first being introduced. They were coming over to Haven carrying a crate that they would trade to Jeremiah Oliver, who was playing as Jace Oxen. And the lore contest was, what is so special in this crate that they're going to trade? So we had a lore contest, and the Nagamatos were controlled by Makai. He was doing this since way back. Those are some badass characters, though. You can't. Come on, man. You could have submitted these as NPCs, man. Why? Damn. The Nagamatos. Remember they had the theme. Dong, 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 dong. Anyway. The lore contest was, what are these people carrying in this crate? We had a lot of great submissions. Some of those submissions ended up being used. I know Myra Dare has one of the submissions that were submitted item wise, and the Fist was one of them. And a lot of people were like, it's just like the Infinity Gauntlet. That's okay, but we can turn it into more. It ended up being an Infinity Gauntlet, but whoever created it created different names for the different abilities. One was summon hordes of the endless, like creatures. One could go back in one of the abilities could go back in time. The other could just had destructive power, which gave you a passive bonus. And leave it up to me to put a spin on it and twist it. It ended up being a part of a character of a creature that someone submitted. So it ended up being that creature's arm, Fist of the Endless. And ended up having like these necrofiend, necrotech powers. We took it a different direction. It was meant to be a plot item. It was very powerful on purpose. Think about it when the gods stand over a board and they say release the Kraken. They're trying to create something in the world. They're trying to create something because they know that's going to create drama. So the Fist of the Endless was meant to be something that was going to stir drama. Am I okay with the person having the ability to go back in time and change shit? Yes, I am. It's not going to be permanent. It'll give a player the opportunity to do some off the wall shit they'll never be able to do again. Let's see what would you change? It's no different than a lore submission. What would you change in the past? Except we actually let a player do it. They decided to go back and stop the Ritual of the Endless from recurring. And everybody was happy. It led to this whole season pretty much, but it's done now. It's gone. It's gone. What exactly is the current state of Rezanok and Shiro Aoi? Are they dead or just out of action in some way? Shiro's a mystery. I left it open intentionally. Will he run with the android plot, or will he kindly decline and escape a prison that Anarchy has the real Shiro locked into somewhere? It's totally up to him. I'll write it any way he wants me to write it. I'm gonna go off of what the player wants to do on the fly, like the only way I can. In Rezanok, he's free. He's free of his abyssal brimstone body. Now, if you remember, Rezanok was displaced They were inside of Nam's mind. Deftude summoned these creatures that were figments of Rezanok's childhood, his favorite childhood characters, which were comic characters from the Gamma Friends, a lore submission created a long time ago. They sucked him into some kind of black hole. What doesn't kill Rezanok makes him stronger. His body mutates and made it so that he never can be displaced again, because his body makes itself resistant to what would have killed him. So what happens is Rezanok is revived. He's found by Ivan. Ivan gives him a proper body for his spirit to go into, and he chose this. I always picture like a really, really black skeleton with a red cape. That's how I always imagined it. Rezanok has a picture of what it looks like. It looks pretty much like that, except the cape is black. But he more so did that because he was in a dark place. He didn't want to show his face. He didn't want Nam to ever see him. Until he got their child back. So at that scene where you see Rezanok and you see Nam return for him after she had baby X, she returned for him. She always knew Rezanok's true heart. She created her own card just for him. The ability that Deftude taught her, that Deftude learned from Six the Savior, taught it to her. She started creating her own card. She was mastering the cards, created her own card of what she remembered Rezanok to truly be. His true self. Remember, she always had she always knew what his innocence looked like, because Deftude took his innocence, because that's what was holding Rezanok back. So he took the innocence out of Rezanok, but she has that, and Rezanok is now in that card, and she can manifest Rezanok any way she wants. This is an opportunity for Rezanok to tell us what he's going to look like now, because remember, Rezanok is an alien that's not of the tank. He's of an Elanthier race, which is going to be one of the races that we add. Mind you, we're going to leave it up to Rez, but to my knowledge, the Elanthier he's supposed to be like the last one. But if he's going to open it up to the people, that's a whole other storyline that can be made. It's up to him. But yeah, that the Fist of the Endless is laying in a pile of that old body of his. He's free. How long will / has the time skip be? Not long, maybe a month. It's going to be an interesting one. I can tell you that. How did Henri manipulate the sword if it was made from psi energy? This was a legit oversight made by me, and I'm glad you called it out. I encourage anyone who locates a plot hole to think of a way to fill the plot hole so that we can make it canon ASAP. Just let me know. I have an idea how we can fill that up easily, because I had to do this on a day in and day out basis to I fill in plot holes and make sure that y'all's plots can connect with one another. So, let's just say Jace Beleren, who was a really strong telepathic person, his telepathic link was so powerful that it gave Henri the power to overcome Yin Nagamoto's deteriorating psyche. He was going psycho, so maybe he didn't have full control over his mind and psyche, which was what holding the blade, which was, the psyche was his sister's psyche. His sister's psychic power. So maybe Henri was so mentally stable and mentally powerful, empowered by Jace Beleren's telepathic link, that it allowed him to kind of will power over the blade and form it around his hand. If you want to, the more you talk about it, the more it seems to start making sense. Because if you think about it, remember when Akari Nagamoto was trying to attack Henri, but the chi metal helmet repelled that. Maybe his if you consider the chi infused helmet that protected it from Akari's mind, that could also have an effect on the side blade. So just an idea. What does the future of Deathtude and the Futurists have in store? Are their stories simply finished? I would say so. It depends on how Jeremiah keeps them in check. The moment J.O. loses sight of control, loses sight or control of them, then you can bet your bottom dollar that they will emerge as villains again. And I love the idea of that, villains that of the past returning, on some Batman shit. What are legacy perks, and how did you decide on what they should be for each character and the effect that they have? So yeah, legacy perks again are going to be that thing that, if you could take one thing into a new world or a reboot, what would you? Let's look at like your favorite series: One Piece, Naruto, Batman, Superman, or any show that you watch, and they were going to say, hey, we're going to reboot your show. We're going to make it more, we're going to lower the power level. We're going to make it more focused on this living in the city, so on and so forth. But what is one thing you want to take from previous seasons that you feel shapes you outside of what you already have in your character sheet? What do you want to take with you? And we'll find a way to make it work so it still works in the environment. Whatever your legacy perk is, we're going to make it work. We're going to convert it into something, but it's going to try to be the epitome of what you were, just to kind of soften the change that's going to happen, because we don't want to completely neuter you or make you any different than you were before, but we do want to kind of dial it down. The legacy perk is an additional perk that you're going to have that kind of makes that transition a bit easier for your character. But again, that's something that's going to be best determined after we do all the races and the racial perks and the occupations, because you want to figure that stuff out, because that might really inspire you to do something new, something different, or something not at all. Are we sticking to Haven or exploring into space? We are sticking to Haven, but Haven will be subject to many cosmic encounters thanks to Scorn. So more on that later. You're going to know a lot of what's going on in the premise that I set up for season 3. But I do want to bring it back to Haven City. We kind of got derailed with Nebu. I do like the idea of other nations, and we're going to keep that. But I'm looking to probably make the whole planet a city planet, maybe with the exception of some islands in the oceanic islands, different cultures, different city cultures. But, this Gamma Haven is literally an offshoot of a game that I used to run called Gamma Universe, a tabletop game I ran with some friends. And there was a whole system out there that I do want to incorporate into this, but it's just going to be done in a different way. Again, I want to make it so that I can tie everybody together. It sounds hot to, hey, everybody gets their own story. That sounds hot when you have like 4 people playing the game, but when you're doing a separate story for, I'm thinking long haul. I'm thinking like the long game here, because I don't want to change it later on. I want to do it the way I'm doing it now and have it so people are familiar with it going forward. But I got to be able to tie everybody. You can have your own story, but there's going to be something that links you all together. So that way, you're killing multiple birds with one stone. If I open it up to the universe, you're going to have somebody go there. You're going to have somebody go to that planet, and so on and so forth. So that's the only reason we're not going to do it that way. But there's definitely going to be a sci-fi aspect that involves the universe, just in a more creative way. What are some changes? What changes will there be to ranks and the death system? A good question. So let me explain ranks again real quick, because there were some misconceptions that, especially when I rolled out the Patreon, that the more times you were in an episode, you had a better chance of winning, and there was a misconception that it was pay to play. but I've been trying to preach that ranks don't really mean anything at all, because it's like wrestling. And like that example I gave before, you have a cat, you have a mouse, cat and mouse. Let's say the cat's rank is above average, the mouse's rank is below average. So yeah, you would think ranks really matter, and if you're in an episode, you have a chance of your rank going up. Yeah, that's true too. But this is why it doesn't matter, because at any point in time, I can throw in a dog, and if I feel like if I feel like there's a cat going against a mouse, and I want to make that scene more exciting, I'll throw in a dog with the mouse to take on the cat, just to add drama and make it so nobody's expecting any easy wins. Sometimes I won't, sometimes I will. It really comes down to what makes for a better story. So it doesn't, ranks don't really matter. So, you know, at any time I could take something away, I could penalize someone. Something, you know, I encourage players to use details to affect the scenario, affect the situation. The new rules is going to make it so that how you can do that is easier and it's clearer. It was something you could always do, but I'll give you the example again. Cat versus dog. Cat stronger, mouse is weaker. Players can use details to their advantage. So if the player submitting for the mouse says, hey, the house that I'm fighting the cat in is filled with mouse holes, that would give the mouse a little boost, because he now has some options, some maneuverability, places to hide, you know. So he gets, you know, and then the cat might say, you know, my master laid a bunch of mouse traps around, so yeah, there's a lot of holes, but there's also mouse traps in them, and then we're back even again. But they're fighting each other using the details, and what's going to hold the most weight are the ones that are your actual abilities that you write down. And then again, here I come throwing in a dog, so you'll have more control over the scenario. But that was why I was revisiting the idea of the death system, and that's why it was always a little finicky, because you could die at any moment. And it could be because of something that I did. So we're going to be moving into a system where if you lose with someone that you encounter directly, and you're opposing them, and they're way stronger than you, you will be, or if you just lose, period, you will be maimed. Now, a maim is an egregious wound, a very severe wound that you would need to live with for a while, as you try to find a way to cure it. Think about Dravko Mas. He was dealing, and he's cured now, but he was dealing with, when he took what was Jacob's gun? When he took that shit to the chest, his chest was filled with shrapnel, and it affected him. If he ever did anything that caused him the need to be able to breathe good, or he would get a penalty, unless he decided to lay low and cure it. But he was dealing with that. I made sure I wrote it in every scene, just to make sure it was something that felt like it was hampering him, lingering. That's a maim. It's a negative effect that could give you some rank penalties. And then if you lose again, that's when you'll die. And this is to be determined, but that's the direction that I'm thinking we're going to go in. All of my team is on board with that, and we think we're going to do that. But I really wanted to encourage people to lay low, jump out of the action for a bit, focus on themselves, take care of their wounds, utilize the environment, utilize other players. Gamma Haven is open to all kinds of characters. Yes, it's sci-fi. Yes, it's cyberpunk. But you're gonna, it's open to fantasy people. So you're gonna have magic. You're gonna have ways to. You're gonna have magical ways to fix your wounds. If you get your arm cut off, you can get some cybernetic arms. I want people to start leaning on that environment, that vibe, and using each other. So if you don't get a cybernetic eye, maybe you can get a magical eye that some weird character, some player character can make, and so on and so forth. I think it just makes it so you have to use the resources of the narrative or other player characters. If anything changes, I'll let you know. There were multiple necrofiends at the ritual. We know the state of Deathtude in the futures. What happens to the others? They are faceless lich lackeys that have been here by Deathtude's side since episode 1 or 2 of the prequel. Deathtude always had 5 other associates who were on the science, on a blood vein science, life science branch. You could look at them as just, they weren't like high level liches like him, but they may have just been scientists that were just Takane occultists that were really intelligent. Because remember, Deathtude, he kind of came into the world, he kind of infiltrated the world. Who knows what blood vein? Apparently Deathtude is a relative of the blood vein, but we know he's a lich. But that goes back to whenever cycles change, they can make people remember what they're supposed to remember and think what they're supposed to think, because it's all coding. So Deathtude coded himself into blood vein. And so these people think that they are probably like his relatives, but they really aren't. But it's a lot. They've been there since the prequel, which again is really hard to listen to, but feel free to go back and check that out. But it's filled with a lot of lore and there's a lot of tie-ins. But we can assume that they were either killed in the fight or they ran away. It's open. They weren't important though. It sounds like a great lore contest or for something for someone to build off of. So that's open to everyone else. The Void has won against the light in Yaga. What does this mean for the afterlife and characters' options to revive themselves? Good question. So the Yaga Born was supposed to be an alternative to dying and going to the Void. But no longer, which is why that kind of encouraged me to do the main, changing up the death system to allow a main. Because the last thing I want to do is people creating new characters over and over again, because that's more maintenance. But I feel like, and I think what we all agreed on is without the death system, it kind of loses a little edge there. You would really have to be really wanting to get into a lot to die. Think about it. You get maimed, your legs gets cut off or something like that. For you to die, you would have to go right back into into some action again with a cut off leg, and you deserve to die at that point. Oh, and another important rule is that if 2 losses in one season is what's going to get you killed. So if you lose in a season, you get maimed and you lay low and you don't lose again for the rest of the season, and then you lose the first episode of the next season, it's just going to start over again. So 2 losses in one season will get you killed. But yeah, the Yagaborn was supposed to be an alternative, but again, I want players to rely on what's available: technology, magic, etc. So right now there is only the Void. I kind of like the afterlife thing until someone creates another character to come and try to put their little twist on that. There's going to be no more realms, though. I think we have enough realms, just like we have enough districts. With lore submissions open again soon and new races showing up, would it be possible to create new districts? We really thought about it. I really wanted to have a whole bunch of districts, but we have a lot of districts right now that they need to be fleshed out. They could totally use some more fleshing out, more story, more fun facts added to them. Without adding more districts. Based on how well we fleshed them out on the road to season 3, I might add a few more to create environments that we don't have enough of, but we'll see. With Epony being the planet, can she reconstitute her body at will, or maybe her spirit at will, to participate in events? Or does her being the planet force her into her own story role? I love doing what is yet to be done. And with our creativity combined, We are Ebony Planet. No, but it's really up to her. Maybe it can be her legacy perk, but I'm open to all ideas. Her manifesting and being the planet as the character sounds really cool. The whole planet is not a natural planet, so it ain't like she's the whole planet, at least not yet. But just like when Ivan came and wanted to be something of the afterworld, that wasn't done yet. It added a whole new mechanic. The thing with Ebony could be something cool too. Maybe when you die and you're buried, it changes how you manifest, or you never know. You never know. Does R-Type X still have / can he manipulate pure Aura Vitae energy? Will he work that into a season 3 version of his character? We'll see. The Aura Vitae I kind of look at it as a key item, and when you have a key item in any RPG, there's a point in time where them key items sit in your key item box and you just don't ever use it again. And you don't need it anymore. So unless someone makes Aura Vitae relevant again, for example, maybe Rose Excalibur never wakes up and she's in a coma because out of the 3, she was the person that really couldn't handle the Aura Vitae leaving her. And maybe Aura Vitae is what is needed to bring this child back to life. I could see me adding something like that just for the purpose of putting a bridge between R-Type and Kai Excalibur, who we have never seen cross paths. So I do things like that, just like when I drop the fist in there to get people to, I might even make it, I might do something involving the Aura Vitae later on. And of course, it's whatever R-Type wants to do with it. Why did Tempest replace the Cure? That's a really great question, and I go really deep into that on the director in depth, but in a nutshell, I already knew that there was going to be the sleeper androids, and that we were going to find out in the end that there were sleeper androids, and Ninja Bella was a sleeper android, but she didn't know she was a sleeper android yet. She didn't know that she was going to be putting a fake cure that would ruin everybody on the planet. Originally, the idea was, before all the sleeper android, before all the Makai stuff, Haven Guard was going to beat Nox. And they were going to cure everybody, but secretly, hey, no, not now. I'm almost done. Bet. Thank you. What was supposed to happen was Haven Guard thought they were going to be curing everybody, when really they were just really going to be throwing the next phase of the virus into, making it bloom, which would make it worse, which was supposed to create pherolemia and weaken every mutant, and they were going to be ran by Nox soldiers, the whole planet. And now it was going to be this cool thing, this oppression of Nox. But we didn't go in that direction. But we went in the direction of the sleeper androids, and Ninja was going to be putting in something that was going to harm everybody. So remember, Tempest knew about all of this, but he can't share these things with people. So I thought it would be cool mid-episode to have people, the majority of the people listening, think that Tempest betrayed Haven Guard, when really he was moving on his own accord with information he couldn't share. And what I thought it was perfect how Marshall Mesa was on that mission, because if anybody was going to see past that time manipulation when he froze time, it would be Marshall, right? With the hypercognitive. That's what that's for. So I'm like, this is perfect. So let's have Marshall see this to create some drama there. So that's what that was for. It was Tempest saving the planet, but I didn't want the viewers to know that. I wanted it to look like he was fucking everybody over, because this is before everybody knew Ninja Bella was also a sleeper android. And the point of the scene where Ninja was, looking at the cure and really nervous, it was just to show that she wasn't activated, just like Chronicle wasn't activated. Until it was showtime, time to perform her function. That calling, similar to when Collective was called to Sector 12. She was feeling weird at the beginning of the episode. You know what I mean? So he replaced the virus with a cure, because what Ninja was doing was going to fuck everybody up. How much money did Cervantes make on her bets? And can she pillage musket mouths, wenches, fleet ships, booty, and treasure during the time skip? Hey, work that out into your new character sheet or a legacy perk. Your legacy perk can be like endless riches. Buy anything, whatever you want, because you sold all of his shit, or something like that. We'll work it out. We'll work it out. Whatever happened to Sister Word's red entity, and what was the red android Jacob faced and destroyed? Really good question. Now, Sister Word's red entity, I'm not sure what that is, but I'm almost certain you're talking about that big golden insect that hatched from the cocoon. That is a story arc that just wasn't continued because she hasn't played, but we can assume Sister Word is still somewhere in the tank with that big monster that can have a big effect on things because it was a strong creature. The red android is, do I have that in the plot? Let me see. I hope so. The red android is a lore submission submitted by the instigator. When the instigator first joined, the instigator created a whole bunch of monsters, a whole bunch of enemies, a whole bunch of NPCs, a whole bunch of villains. And we've seen a lot. We've seen some of them in here, sprinkled in, because I have a whole list that I go down. The red android, just listen to this. It's just perfect how a lot of this stuff came into fruition. Whatever happened to Sister Word's red entity, and what was the red android Jacob faced and destroyed? Good question. Now, when you're talking about the red entity, I'm almost certain that you're talking about that big creature that came out of the cocoon, that was under the control of her. That is a story arc that hasn't been continued because the player hasn't been here, but we can assume that Sister Word, or the first G-Type 2, the first wielder of the R Vitae, is somewhere in the tank and with that creature, which is a very powerful creature that could have a big impact on things in the future if it should ever show up again. When it again, I had mentioned earlier, when it comes to characters, they're written in a way that they can come and go. So it still exists. Now, as far as the red android goes, that red android is a lore submission from the instigator that was submitted so long ago, back when the instigator was first playing. The instigator created so many NPCs, so many G-types, so many villainous G-types back then. And every now and then they'll show up in the world. I think I used a few of them to kind of fill in some spaces there. But the red android I thought was a really cool concept. And I added the red android. This is back when I thought Zaldin and Hunter were real characters. The analogy that I used, where it was cat versus mouse, and then I threw the dog in, the red android would be the dog. I was throwing the android in on their side to kind of tilt the scales a bit for drama. The red android, I'm gonna pull up their lore submission because they're actually in the lore. The red android, real name TXROA 48340. Age 1 year and 3 weeks. Affiliation unaffiliated. Notable abilities: rogue AI, machine manipulation, uncontrollable. Originally a normal analytic AI under Anarchy 12's command, the entity that would become known as the Red Android had no wants or desires beyond completing its task. However, this changed, for with the arrival of Grinfall, it developed a set of gamma mutations, providing it with a fairly comprehensive personality, wants, likes, dislikes, and it immediately disliked working for someone other than itself. The other things that it was provided with were the ability to transmit itself between any computers within line of sight and control any machines attached to those computers. Upon realizing that one of his machines gone rogue Anarchy immediately tried to regain control. However, this didn't go as planned, as it was discovered that it could no longer be controlled by any means whatsoever as a side effect of its mutation. Having failed to control his creation, Anarchy attempted to destroy the malfunctioning AI unsuccessfully as it happened, whereupon it discovered the second thing it disliked, being attacked. And so it decided to hide from the world, especially Anarchy, until such a time that it would be ready to face the chaos of Haven. It currently resides in a specialty crafted android with bright red armor resembling an archaic knight, easily mistakable for an eccentric human hiding out somewhere in the Divergent district. So I pretty much made it so that it wasn't a normal sized human knight, but made it a really big red archaic knight. And that red claw is the hand that that Tobias Iron Claw sat on. And I made it so that instead of it hiding in the Divergent district, it was hiding in the mountains, away from Anarchy, away from everyone. Created a whole civilization that relied on a little bit of technology, but more had a warrior mind, which goes in hand with it being a knight. And I made it so that instead of it portraying as a knight in disguise, it was controlling like a puppet Tobias Ironclaw, who was really just a front for the android that was under the mountain controlling the whole entire civilization. And the Iron Republic is a whole nother civilization created by Jacob, the player of Jacob, to be a whole nother civilization that was more like kind of like knights and the Iron Age. He created them last season, but there was so much going on, and I told him, we'll work it in eventually. And I didn't tell him I would be putting it into this season in the finale. So I was hoping that he would have enjoyed it for this, just purely based off of a whole whole portion of the continent that he created was put into the finale, and it all was like really cohesive. So the thing with the claw and Tobias Iron Claw, it all just kind of worked out together. And that's pretty much what the red android is. Now, to kind of expand on that, the red android is rogue AI created by Anarchy. And then with Nox, and I go in this deep in the director in depth, but the Nox group, like Zaldin, they kind of hint that they aren't human. Remember when Nox was, when Zaldin was like talking to Jacob, and he said, I think those two can understand where I'm coming from. And he pointed at King Obadiah and Killjoy. It's because they were androids. And before he could kind of explain what he meant by that, remember Killjoy killed Zaldin before he could. But Zaldin and the Nox directors, if there's any of them, if there's any more of them, they are forcing people, soldiers, indoctrinating them and forcing them into robot suits, which is what Jason Hunter was. So that's why when Jason Hunter got killed, or was getting killed, he came clean and was like, it's not what you think. Like, we're forced to pretty much make ourselves into machines because Nox and Zaldin, they are pretty much androids that went rogue after Anarchy went off the grid. And they tried to take over Haven, but they went over there to reunite. Or they went over there to gain the help of another group of rogue androids controlled by the red android. So remember when Jacob was fighting the red android, before they fought, the red android was saying a bunch of things that they couldn't understand, but was blabbing. What they could understand was it was blabbing about something about a civil war between androids over the control over humans. Well, that was more so hinting at, you have the red android and Nox uniting to take over Haven now that Anarchy is gone. But Anarchy wasn't gone. Anarchy was acting through the sleeper androids, King Obadiah, and all of those people in Haven Gate. So he was using Haven Gate to go over to the west to handle the red android and Nox. before him. So it was a civil war between Anarchy's androids and Nox and the Red androids who were trying to take over Haven, and he pretty much used Haven Guard to go over there and do his dirty work and take them off of the map, destroying them. So at the end, when they destroyed the Red android, remember King Obadiah was standing there looking at the wreckage? It was because it was a sense of accomplishment. Let that sink in. Good question. Is the Fist of the Endless still in the game? Yes, it's still there. It just is the Fist of the Endless still in the game? Yes. Does it still have the same power? No. I'm gonna find a way so that it doesn't. Can it be repurposed and or sold or made use of? Yeah, for sure. But as far as all the powers that came with Nuad, Nuad is gone. Nuad is gone. So all the Chishki and the other powers, that's not a thing anymore. Is the Fist of the Endless still in the game? Yup, and it's right on Anarchy. Is the Fist of the Fist of Anarchy still in the game? Yes, it's on Anarchy. Is the Fist of Anarchy if the Fist of Anarchy is in the game, what is it capable of? Well, we learned that it's full of capability. Well, we never learned its full capability because Starriff never spent time with learning the necrotech. And I don't blame him. There was a lot going on. He needed to use it ASAP, and he got lucky a few times by using the necrotech to see what would happen. It was just more so like controlling, causing the necro guardian armors to malfunction, or he would fill it up with his own aura vitae energy and stuff. He caused someone to turn into an abomination. So what Anarchy does with it is based on his capabilities of his character sheet that he comes up with. So he pretty much has his hand. I mean, he created it. It could do some things with dark magic, probably, but it would depend on what he decides to put on his character sheet. Do the reworked races grant bonuses? There will be racial bonuses. In fact, I'm going to have lore contests, and I'm going to make bonuses based off of the winning submissions. So you all are going to be able to control not only the lore behind each race and different facts about the race, but even like some racial bonuses. And I want to have multiple racial bonuses because I want there to be some variance in between the races, because I want to encourage people to be a race and have some racial unity there, you know? Basic G-type was one of the races at first. That was for people who didn't really want to classify as anything, but we're moving away from that by adding a whole bunch of races so that you'll have to be one of the races. I mean, it makes sense, right? Are we going to get the quick written breakdowns again? I always liked how fast they were post-hype from an episode. Yeah, accompanied by an awesome website as well. What happened during Rezanok's battle with Nuad, and did Rezanok beating Nuad signify anything bigger than what we saw? Really good question. Rez beat Nuad, but he was assisted by Ivan. Now, when Rez first put in the submission that he was going to, they were going to go back in time and they were going to intercept Nuad's spirit as it came into Rezanok, or it went into the Baby X. And that Rez was going to intercept and make it go into him, and he was going to take on Nuad. There's no ability that Rezanok has that would allow him to take on a spiritual entity such as Nuad. So when I saw that, I'm like, you're gonna lose this. And then I looked at it as, because Ivan specifically stated he was going to help Rez. So if it ever got to that, Ivan pretty much Ivan was, he built up Rez and prepared him. You know, Ivan can manipulate life forces. So I look at it as Ivan assisted heavily. That's why Ivan was guarding Reznak throughout the whole process. But also what played a part into Reznak winning was his mutation, his alien mutation that allows him to not be, he anchors him to a dimension so he can't be pulled out of a particular dimension. Which is what essentially would have happened if what Nuad was trying to do with him. He was trying to erase him, but he can't be erased because Deathtude pretty much tried to erase him, but his mutation made it so that he cannot be displaced. So that probably had a lot to do with why Reznak could not be ousted from the vessel or erased from the vessel by the power of Nuad because of his alien DNA. And so I think the whole thing really signifies Reznak's will to exist and live, which is why he was able to survive. Does Anarchy have control over the collective and access to all of her memories? By default, no. Player of the collective expressed exploring the idea of a race of sentient machines or nanobot swarm. So if the collective were to continue down that path, with that thought, if she were to continue down that path, then that would make her subject to mind probing and potential control if she were to lose a role against Anarchy in an encounter. So if she decides that she wants to be some sort of non-human machine, that would subject her to Anarchy if he said, hey, I'm going to try to control this person. But that would have to happen in a direct encounter. So if she were to lose her role, that would likely be the way that Anarchy would overcome. But, you know, that's common. That's common. There's always going to be a way for you to lose. That's why I don't encourage people to be really OP, because when you lose, it's going to look pretty drastic. You know, it's common for, you know, damned if you do, damned if you don't. You know, you got Henri controlling people with the iron in their blood, controlling them like puppets. So even if you're human, Henri can control you. If you're a robot, Anarchy can control you. You know, someone's going to have an advantage somewhere, but they have to beat you in the dice for that narrative to even take place. Another good example, you know, speaking of the dice, before I even found out about the whole Makai thing, the player of Ivan asked me, he said, hey, is Makai free of the contract that we had between me and him? You know, when Makai died and he was brought back by Ivan and he agreed to a contract, pretty much, you know, he can't betray Ivan. In the story, yes, he was bound by that contract because he shed his body. But because he shed his body and died in the light of Yaga, he pretty much was freed of that contract. But I told Ivan, to the question he asked, is he still bound by the contract? I told Ivan if he were to lose a role, he would be. So if there was any kind of role in the future and Ivan was going against Makai and Makai lost, how else are you going to beat a god like that unless you said that it was a loophole in a contract or something like that? Oh, the contract you weren't really free of the contract because of this clause or something like that. Like that would have been likely the reason. So, you know, the story is the story, the dice are the dice, and yeah. Is the island formerly known as Nebu now empty? Yep, empty of the Nebanese. All gone. All gone. Did Jeremiah Oliver get the futurist in Deathtude or just the futurist? Ivan and Jeremiah Oliver, we saw them both exiting into the void with Deathtude and the futurist. When the collective severed the telepathic link between Jace and her, did Jace note it? Did Jace notice it? I think Jace would have. I think Jace would have noticed the telepathic link being severed unless he is purposely trying to mute the link between his mind and her mind to avoid hearing her thoughts, which is what he said at the beginning of the episode, if you remember, when he was saying, you know, I don't encourage you knowing her thoughts either, talking to Henri. I was kind of foreshadowing that telepathic link being severed there. So it depends. Is Jace gonna continue with the role playing and say that he wasn't linked, or is he going to say that he was always linked to her chaotic mind and was always listening to her head all the time, despite her saying she wanted to go and have some alone time? In which district is the Dizzy Wizard's new acquired Dizzy Wiz Fizz factory located? That's up to him. I suggest he wait for us all to flesh out the district lore before deciding on which district it's going to be in, because there might be a district that is more suitable based off of what people submit, based off of what you submit. The road to season 3. Looking forward to that. In the Ritual of the Endless, Omni Almighty was thrown off of the pyramid. Now, did he die from that, or did he survive? Omni Almighty was forced to unfuse. Remember, he was a combined being. He was forced to unfuse in order to avoid killing himself, because Jeremiah gave him the command to do so. He told Omni Almighty to kill himself. They all held him in place, and Jeremiah shook his hand. So they separated themselves, which essentially changed their own identity. So they were free of the curse. But when they did that, they were vulnerable, they were weakened, and then the amazing Rhino threw them off of the cliff. But right in the next episode, the player of Omnimus writes or submits that he's healing. He's using his time to heal. So that's why Omnimus is sitting in the laboratory healing in a rehabilitative center. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to do what Nonin or Enchel would probably do, and that is study a creature or study Omnimus and learn to see if there can anything could be learned by way of energy and stuff like that. So Omnimus is alive, he's healing, and everything that happened with Selena, all that was happening over top of Omnimus sleeping. So remember, he was sleeping, and then those Omni cubes appeared over his head that had Selena trapped in there. All right, so lots of great questions. Anything that I didn't get to, I'll definitely be covering in the director in depth. As you can see, it went from daytime to nighttime. So I'm probably not going to be recording that today, but it is on my list of things to do. The director in depth is going to cover some things that you may not care about, but it'll really show, it'll put some perspective on a lot of what happened in the episode. I think even answering those questions allowed me to kind of go a little bit deeper into some things, and that's why we're always going to have the Q&A. So I hope that shed a lot of light on some of the things here. If you have any questions, I'll see you in the Discord. But again, you know, the whole point of Gamma Haven is to just be part of the history and have scenes and have big roles and think about the future, think about the long run and what your character is contributing to the timeline of Gamma Haven. That's what really matters. So yeah, it was fun. I always enjoy answering your questions, whatever helps you get a better understanding of what happened. And, you know, feel free to shoot those questions in the Discord as well. If you enjoyed the video and there was a lot of helpful information in here, definitely hit that like button. If you are new to the community, or if you are in a community and have yet to do so, I highly recommend you subscribe. And I will see you soon with some more videos coming out as we approach season 3 of Gamma Haven. Lots of big changes you should look forward to. I look forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah. Director Peoplz signing out.